and that is the present. Life knows only one space, and that's here. Now and here. These two words are the most significant words in the human language. They represent reality. This quote has become incredibly important to me over the past few years, and I find myself coming back to it over and over again. I've been teaching and practicing mindfulness for the past 3 years now, and most of you here have at least taken one class from me before, so you're aware of how often I talk about presence and mindfulness in my classes. So today I would like to explore a little more on why that is and why I believe we should be practicing it even outside of our yoga practice. I'm going to be giving you examples and studies of why there is a need for it, why presence is the answer to those needs, and some examples on how to practice it. So what exactly is mindfulness? Well, in the context of this speech, mindfulness is being aware of what's happening in the present moment without judging it. Mindfulness and presence go hand in hand. If you're being present, you're practicing mindfulness. If you're practicing mindfulness, you're being present. So why do we need it? Well, let's say you're taking a yoga class and your physical body is on your mat, but you're thinking about that person who cut you off on your way here. Even though you enjoy coming to yoga, you are not in a good mood. And that is because there's a real connection between unhappiness and a wandering mind. There is a study called A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind, and it was created by M. Killingsworth and D. Gilbert. For this study, they created an app that would periodically record what their users were doing, where their thoughts were while they were doing it, and what their happiness level was. They found that if the mind was wandering, then the people were more likely to be unhappy than those that were focused on the activity that they were doing. Even if the person enjoyed the activity that they were doing, if their mind was wandering, they were more likely to be unhappy. And this could be due to the fact that the types of thoughts that make our minds wander tend to be unhelpful or even negative, just like thinking about that person who cut you off. I would also like to explore the connection between unhappiness and stress and anxiety. In a research paper called Which Health Conditions Cause the Most Unhappiness, by Carol Graham, Lucas Figuera, and Eduardo Lora, they found that the conditions that cause high uncertainty, like stress and anxiety, had a higher impact on individuals' happiness over, quote, health shocks that cause one-time change, like loss of mobility. So I know these things aren't very comforting to hear, especially as someone who has struggled with anxiety and stress management in the past. But I believe that there is something that we can do to help ease these things, and that answer is practicing mindfulness every day, as often as we can. The founder of mindfulness-based stress reduction, Dr. Kabat-Zinn, defined mindfulness as paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. So there are a lot of definitions of what mindfulness is, and they all relate back to being present, but this one adds non-judgment into the mix, and I feel like that is incredibly important. So let's go back to that study, A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind. If the mind wandering causes people to be more unhappy than if it didn't, then we should try to remain present with the activity that we're doing, no matter what it is, especially if it's an activity that we enjoy. Just like Dr. Kabat-Zinn's mindfulness definition, we should do the task with purpose, with all of our attention, and don't judge it or get frustrated when thoughts inevitably pop in. So let's move on to how presence can ease stress and anxiety. As I mentioned before, I used to, and still do sometimes, have anxious thoughts and feelings. Before becoming a teacher and learning more about mindfulness, back when I had almost daily anxiety attacks, something that I was told often was to focus on my breath. And this itself is mindfulness. There are plenty of articles about how mindfulness can help ease stress and anxiety, but there is one in particular that caught my attention, and I'm going to read an excerpt from it for you. It is called Mindfulness Research Update by Jeffrey Grusin. Clinical research indicates that cultivating a more mindful way of being is associated with less emotional distress, more positive states of mind, and a better quality of life. In addition, mindfulness practice can influence the autonomic nervous system and stress hormones. If mindfulness can do all of that, then we should all be practicing it all the time. It has absolutely helped me, and I strongly believe that it can help you as well. I still have anxious thoughts from time to time, but since integrating mindfulness into my daily life, it's no longer a daily occurrence for me, and when I do get anxious thoughts, it's a lot easier for me to help ease and calm them. So let's picture what happens when we practice mindfulness. When emotions arise, whether they're positive or negative, a person that practices mindfulness is better able to accept that feeling and sort through unnecessary thoughts, and they can either move through the emotion or stay in the emotion. So as an example of staying in an emotion, sometimes when we get the feeling of happiness or joy, our first thought is, wait, this can't be right. I do not deserve to be this happy. Something bad is absolutely going to happen, I just know it. Once that expectation of not deserving happiness pops into the mind, it is a lot more difficult to remain happy. Brene Brown calls this foreboding joy. And in her book, The Power of Vulnerability, she discusses what foreboding joy is and the psychology behind it, but she also states that we all experience this feeling. We see it all the time in movies. You see a really happy scene and everybody's happy and joyous, but you know something bad is going to happen, and of course you're right, because that's what happens in movies. But a person that practices mindfulness when faced with those intrusive thoughts will keep coming back to that happy moment no matter how many times they have to redirect. I'm not telling you that presence is going to stop those thoughts from happening, but it can absolutely help you control them. Mindfulness is not about forcing thoughts down. It is about moving past them and refocusing on the present. Keeping that in mind, I would like you guys here to make a commitment to being present at least one time per day for just a week to test it. You can do it for however long you have, whether it's a minute or 10 minutes. And some simple ways of being present would be, say, sitting down for dinner and really tasting all of the food that you're eating. Or when you're having a conversation with somebody, listen to every word that they're saying instead of thinking about what you are going to say next. Or if you're doing a task, do it with your full attention. Or you can just focus on all of the qualities of the breath. Life knows only one moment, and that is the present. I talk so much about presence and mindfulness because I know that it can help keep you happier and it can help reduce stress and anxiety. With that, I hope that you will try integrating a mindfulness practice into your daily life. Are there any questions?
Who said that quote?
Osho.
That's Osho?
Yes, that's Osho.
Yeah. I'd like to know a little bit more about that excerpt that you were talking about, because I have someone in my family that has some pretty severe anxiety right now.
Oh, okay.
I could use that.
Okay, where was that? That one was called Mindfulness Research Update by Jeffrey Greason. So I didn't really read further into the article about like the psychology behind how presence actually helps it, but for me, when I start getting anxious, it is really, really difficult to actually take a step back and just be mindful for a moment. But when I actually do it, it is so much more helpful. So much more helpful.
So how did you start with breathing?
Yes, that's where I started, with the breath. Yep. Just noticing all the qualities of breath, the texture, the depth, the pace, and if you notice that the breath is moving quickly and it's high up in the chest, then focusing on moving it down and slowing the breath down.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does that also allow you to recognize your anxiety?
So quite. So when I got into the most anxiety that I've had, I was kind of in a point in my life where I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I didn't have this group that we have here. So I think I just went to the doctor, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that's anxiety," and they gave me pills, of course.
Yeah, we wanna avoid those.
Yes, which I've been able to do. I
Awesome.
haven't been on antidepressants. I haven't had to use any anxiety medication, and like my anxiety, it was real bad. So I feel like if I'm able to do it, then anybody is able to take that reflection back. And it's easy in a way that it's something that you can simply do, but it's not easy once you actually try to do it, especially when you're having a panic attack or anxiety, anxious feelings.